I realised today that I didn't fully respond to one of Jack's questions, so I'll address that first. Jack's question was, how did I get the bats out of the trees? And when I first found the colony of bats, they were up very high in the trees, up in the crown of the tree. I tried throwing sticks up to knock them down, and I didn't have much luck there. I couldn't throw a stick up right up into the tree very far. And I tried throwing stones. That didn't work either. And I had to think about it a little bit. And then I thought about a slingshot. So I tore the sleeves off my shirt, and I made a slingshot out of them. I tied them together and made a slingshot, and I used the slingshot to throw medium-sized pebbles up into the tree. And after a fair bit of practice, it took me a while to work it out, but after a fair bit of practice, I managed to knock out of the tree my first bat. It hit the ground and it was stunned, so I ran over and I pounced on the bat. And that's how I would get the bats out of the trees. But I was also thinking about that question, and look, that's a question a lot of people ask me about the bats. What do bats taste like? The question they don't ask me is, what other foods did I eat in the forest? And one of the more traumatic foods that I ate was a snake. One night when I was asleep, I suddenly felt this snake, or this thing. I didn't know it was a snake at the time, but this thing started to just move up onto my chest. And then very slowly, it started to move across my chest. That's when I realised it was a snake, and it was a pretty big snake. I could feel the weight of it on my chest, and I waited there in terror because I didn't know what sort of snake it was. So I waited there in terror while this snake went across my chest. And then when it got to the other side, I jumped up, I rushed over to the fire, and I grabbed a burning stick and I waved it around, and I saw it was a great big diamond-headed python. So I grabbed it and I cut its head off and I hung it up, and the next day I skinned it and dressed it, and that night I had a big meal of snake, and it was a really good, satisfying meal as well. But what happened after that was quite distressing for me. When I tried to go to sleep that night, I went to sleep okay, but all of a sudden I had all these nightmares of all these snakes slithering around me and over me. And I kept waking up, and every time I went to sleep, I would have these horrible imaginings, these horrible dreams and nightmares of snakes. And that went on for weeks and weeks and weeks, until over time they faded away. But what I realised was that I couldn't eat snake. I never ate another snake after that. To this day, I've never eaten another snake. And every time I think of snake, they're a beautiful creature. I like snakes. I would never eat a snake, no matter how hungry I was. And the nightmares are not worth it.